Well, I got in this lawsuit, you know. Dennis is a beautiful guy. He has been trying to build guitars and never knew how to do it until he met me.
Van Halen's legacy is not just about their music, it's about the wild stories that followed them. From outrageous demands to unbelievable backstage antics, many rumors seem too crazy to be true. Join us as we uncover these jaw-dropping stories that made rock history unforgettable. Eddie Van Halen was always recognized for pushing the limits of music, not only through his performance, but also through his equipment. His innovative methods with the guitar resulted in him making some of the most iconic modifications to his instruments, one of which was surprising and slightly unconventional. At the beginning of his career, Eddie lacked the privilege of using high-quality tools or equipment. Rather, he utilized whatever resources were accessible, regardless of their intended purpose. One of the modifications he is best known for was made to his beloved Stratocaster guitar. Eddie planned to put in a Floyd Rose tremolo system, allowing him to execute the signature dive bomb technique he is known for. This method enabled him to drastically lower the pitch of the guitar, resulting in the sweeping, dramatic sound frequently found in his solos. Nonetheless, Eddie lacked a specific instrument to hollow out the required area in his guitar for the tremolo system. He grabbed a butter knife from his kitchen and proceeded to cautiously alter his guitar's body. Without any precise tools, Eddie meticulously carved the exact amount of space needed for the Floyd Rose to fit. His do-it-yourself method was successful, resulting in the guitar producing the distinct sound he desired. Eddie's legendary guitar tone was shaped by his innovative, hands-on approach to his gear, which became part of his iconic status. It demonstrated his love for trying out different sounds and how his ability to make use of whatever was available to him allowed him to develop the iconic style that would characterize Van Halen's music in the future. Despite this being weird and true, there are more crazy rumors that you would never believe are true. Eddie Van Halen had a deep but short-lived friendship with the iconic guitarist Dimebag Darrell Abbott. Although they did not have much time together, the connection they developed was sincere. Unfortunately, Dimebag was fatally shot during a performance at a nightclub, causing deep sorrow in the music industry. His last utterance, allegedly said just before he passed away, was "Van Halen," a private message shared with his brother, Vinnie Paul, representing happiness and liberation. Following the passing of Dimebag, there were talks about placing a guitar in his burial site. Eddie Van Halen reached out to Vinnie Paul and reminisced about how Dimebag was a fan of his famous striped guitars. Dimebag had shown interest in buying one. Instead of creating a new guitar, Van Halen made an exceptional gesture. He made the decision to let go of the original Bumblebee guitar, which was one of his most cherished belongings and gained fame appearing on the back cover of Van Halen 2. Van Halen hand-delivered the guitar, expressing that it should be an authentic tribute to Dimebag's memory. Van Halen paid tribute to his friend Dimebag by burying their iconic instrument together, highlighting their strong friendship and his admiration for Dimebag's impact on the rock industry. This heartfelt act demonstrated Van Halen's generosity and the shared respect between two iconic guitarists, solidifying their connection even after they had passed away. The Bumblebee guitar is now in Dimebag's possession, representing a mutual passion for music and a lasting bond. In his book, Eruption in the Canyon, 212 Days and Nights with the Genius of Eddie Van Halen, Andrew Bennett retells a bizarre encounter with iconic guitarist Eddie Van Halen. Between 2004 and 2007, Van Halen's unconventional approach to resolving conflicts was on display at the event. The narrative starts with Van Halen playing music with Limp Bizkit while auditioning for a new guitarist. Fred Durst asked him to perform at a Beverly Hills residence where the band was practicing. Everything appeared to be going well until individuals started using marijuana. Even though he had smoked his whole life, Van Halen did not like marijuana. He left the session suddenly, leaving behind his guitar and equipment, feeling disgusted. The day after, Van Halen tried to get his things back by reaching out to Durst, but he did not get a reply. Feeling frustrated, he resolved to take action in a unique way that only he was capable of. Van Halen bought a retired military assault vehicle, including a gun mount, from a military auction. Even though it wasn't allowed on the road, he drove all the way from Los Angeles to Beverly Hills, and parked it on the lawn of the house where Limp Bizkit was practicing. Eddie emerged bare-chested, his hair in a samurai bun, sporting jeans held up with a rope and duct-taped combat boots. He angrily moved towards the door with a gun in his hand. After Durst opened the item, Van Halen allegedly pointed the weapon at his head and requested his gear. He wouldn't put down the gun until all the equipment was taken outside. According to Bennett, this strange incident is still considered one of the most shocking tales in rock history, showcasing Van Halen's bold personality and strong perseverance. Eddie Van Halen unexpectedly found himself involved in a fast-paced situation that would turn into an amusing anecdote. While heading to a small racetrack, the rock star became overly enthusiastic and pushed his car to speeds between 90 and 95 miles per hour on a Los Angeles freeway where the speed limit was 65 miles per hour. As expected, a police officer stopped him and gave him a speeding ticket. Nevertheless, the subsequent events took an unforeseen turn. Once they got the ticket, Van Halen's office received a letter stating that the citation had been canceled. What is the cause? The name on the ticket, Eddie Van Halen, caught the attention of the police captain. The captain informed the officer that they should not issue a speeding ticket to Eddie Van Halen, the renowned guitarist. This special situation emphasized the rock star's fame and how just his name was sufficient to avoid a standard traffic ticket. A rare instance occurred where his celebrity status benefited him, saving the rock and roll legend from the repercussions of his fast driving. Eddie Van Halen's uncredited contribution to Michael Jackson's iconic song Beat It was one of the most surprising moments in his legendary career. Van Halen's iconic 20-second guitar solo became a key element of the song. He decided to help producer Quincy Jones with the song without receiving credit or payment. Van Halen presumed his unique sound would go unnoticed. However, it was soon acknowledged worldwide. Van Halen's contribution went beyond the solo. While in the recording studio, Michael Jackson took a short break. During his absence, Van Halen decided to rearrange sections of the song. He revised the middle part, making changes to the previously recorded material. Upon Jackson's return, Van Halen promptly admitted, "I altered the middle of your song." Despite the potential to anger Jackson, the artist pleasantly surprised him by fully embracing and appreciating the new modifications, allowing for creative freedom. The outcome was an innovative partnership between two influential musical entities. Van Halen's electrifying guitar solo and the revamped arrangement brought Beat It to iconic status, fusing rock and pop in a manner that connected with audiences worldwide. Even though Van Halen's contribution went unacknowledged, his impact on the song showcased his brilliance and eagerness to challenge traditional limits, even in unconventional settings. This is not all. In fact, we are about delving into the most interesting part. Keep watching. Eddie Van Halen's innovation went beyond just playing guitar, inspiring him to create a special tool that aims to assist guitarists in expanding their artistic limits. In 1985, Van Halen was granted a patent for a device designed to improve musicians' performance. The creation was essentially a support that sat on a guitarist's thigh, holding the guitar in a level, desk-like stance. This permitted the player to have both hands available for exploring different techniques on the strings. The inspiration for this invention came from Van Halen's unique style of playing. He aimed to provide fellow guitarists with a platform for experimenting with innovative and non-traditional performance techniques. The device was created to offer players increased freedom and flexibility, reflecting Van Halen's musical philosophy. Included with the patent was a diagram illustrating the construction of the device, which was deemed by many to be one of the most unique and creative submissions ever received by the government. The illustration depicted Van Halen's daring and courageous nature, illustrating his dedication to pushing boundaries in music and live shows. Even though the patent is no longer in effect, the device still reflects Van Halen's creativity and his goal of assisting fellow musicians in discovering fresh methods of self-expression. Eddie Van Halen was constantly pushing boundaries, always aiming to improve his instruments and sound. Occasionally, his drive for betterment resulted in intense moments during performances where he would smash his guitars out of adrenaline and frustration. In his search for the perfect guitar, he created the Wolfgang, a guitar named after his child. The Wolfgang was equipped with many enhancements, ensuring it was extremely resistant to damage. The electronics compartment of the guitar was well shielded and firmly connected to the volume and tone knobs, providing stability during high-energy performances. Furthermore, Wolfgang's wiring differed from conventional designs, improving its longevity and dependability. During a live performance, Van Halen put this unbreakable design to the test, only to be taken aback and annoyed by the outcomes. During an interview with CNN, he recounted his journey to dismantle the Wolfgang. He threw it into the air, treated it roughly, and exposed it to rain. 30 minutes later, he came back and discovered that the guitar was not just undamaged, but also still in perfect pitch. Despite being clearly frustrated by Wolfgang's resilience, Van Halen's dedication and craftsmanship was showcased through the guitar's endurance. Wolfgang was more than just a tool. It represented his creative mindset, combining practicality with a rebellious vibe. Even though he couldn't get rid of it, the guitar served as a constant symbol of his unyielding quest for perfection. Eddie Van Halen's friendly and open personality caused him to disclose private band information to a total stranger. The tale emerged on a digital platform where enthusiasts shared their experiences with the iconic guitarist. During his time working at a bike shop in Santa Monica, Robin Bailey shared a memorable moment next to a place frequently visited by Van Halen. Bailey timed his brake perfectly and positioned himself in the parking lot, hoping for a serendipitous encounter. He was rewarded for his patience when he finally had the opportunity to meet Van Halen. Their informal chat suddenly transformed into a surprising disclosure. When Bailey inquired about the band's status, Van Halen nonchalantly provided a significant update. "Good. We have recently completed recording 2 new songs with Roth, and now we are in search of a vocalist." Van Halen became frustrated with Sammy Hagar, pointing out his slow creativity and failure to meet the band's standards. While Bailey was not involved in the music business, he had recently been given exclusive information that had not been made public yet. He could only say, "Bummer," before Van Halen continued on his path. Months later, it was announced that Sammy Hagar was departing from Van Halen, and the band had reunited with David Lee Roth, who had already helped create 2 new songs. Bailey, a regular employee at a bike shop, had been aware of the insider information long before the media caught on, all because of a random meeting with the famous rock star. So which other hilarious rumor turns out to be true? What else do you think is not here yet? Let us know in the comments before we continue. While touring in the 1980s, Van Halen experienced a significant hurdle when their gear was seized by customs in a foreign nation. The band's equipment, consisting of guitars, amplifiers, and all necessary tools for their energetic shows, was held up in customs due to paperwork problems. Van Halen couldn't practice or play without their instruments. There was a tense atmosphere. The band had a performance planned, and without their equipment, they couldn't perform on stage. Time was running short, and their concert was only hours from starting. The team was aware they needed to find a quick solution. After attempting to resolve the problem through proper channels, they understood they may have to get creative in order to get their equipment released. As a final resort, the band's team turned to bribing the customs officials. They provided the officers with tickets to the concert and signed merchandise in order to secure the release of the equipment. It was a smart decision, an unusual approach, but it was successful. The obstacle was removed, and Van Halen was able to take the stage that evening. This event, though anxiety-inducing, became ingrained in the mythical tales of Van Halen's rock and roll existence. It demonstrated their readiness to overcome any challenges to keep the show running smoothly. It also emphasized the disorderly and uncertain aspects of touring, where even minor details such as paperwork could escalate into significant problems. Despite this being a rumor at first, it turned out to be true. What other rumors turned out to be true? Eddie Van Halen's remarkable music abilities were accompanied by an unexpected revelation. He never acquired the skill of reading music. Since they were children, Eddie and his brother Alex were signed up for piano classes by their dad, who was a jazz artist. From the age of 5, Eddie was already skilled at playing the piano before learning to play the drums or the guitar. Yet, the way his piano teacher treated him was anything but ordinary. If Eddie made mistakes, the teacher would hit his hands despite not speaking English. The challenging situation, along with the language obstacle, may have stopped him from ever mastering how to read sheet music. Rather than that, Eddie depended on a non-traditional method. He confessed to learning the teacher's gestures by observing his hand movements and copying them. Despite using this unconventional approach, his innate abilities were still evident. His natural musical talent was proven by his consecutive first-place wins at a piano competition hosted by Long Beach City College. In time, Eddie became impatient with the piano and declared, "I feel like getting up and going wild." His and his brother's pursuit of rock music stemmed from their longing for freedom. United, they started on a trip to fame, with Eddie perfecting his distinctive guitar technique solely by listening. His lack of music reading skills never hindered his progress. It ended up being incorporated into his legacy, serving as a symbol that innate ability and enthusiasm can surpass conventional limitations. In February of 1987, Eddie Van Halen was at the Saturday Night Live (SNL) studio, not as a planned guest, but more as an unwilling companion. He had gone with his former spouse, Valerie Bertinelli, who was set to be the host of the show. Eddie wasn't excited about the thought, but he found solace in the band room, a place where he could unwind away from the attention. Nevertheless, the guitarist of SNL's house band, G.E. Smith, had different intentions. He noticed a chance and persuaded Van Halen to come on stage for a spontaneous show with the band. Van Halen was reluctant at first, but eventually agreed to perform. During the soundcheck, the band swiftly created a song, leaving Smith impressed by Van Halen's spontaneous musical talent. During the live performance, Van Halen committed a minor error that went virtually unnoticed by the audience. However, it was significant to him. Smith remembered that Eddie was clearly bothered by the mistake, despite its minor importance in the overall picture. Van Halen, with his reputation for perfectionism, viewed this small imperfection as a big letdown, highlighting his commitment to providing flawless shows. Even though it wasn't scheduled, Van Halen's spontaneous appearance on SNL turned into an unforgettable and significant moment in rock history. A clause in Van Halen's concert contracts, which was both strange and well-known, mandated a bowl of M&Ms where all the brown ones had to be taken out. Initially, it appeared to be an extravagant act typical of a rock star, an absurd display of lavishness. However, there was a valid explanation for this uncommon demand. The band's manager, together with their tour organizers, meticulously planned all aspects of their contracts, which outlined numerous technical and safety requirements for venues to adhere to. These requirements were essential to ensure the safety of the band, crew, and audience. The stage needed to support specific weights and meet the band's specific electrical power requirements for their elaborate setup, for instance. In order to make sure that these crucial details were being taken seriously and that the venues weren't skimping, the band added the M&M clause as a safeguard. The concept was straightforward. If the employees at a location did not take the time to get rid of the brown M&Ms, they likely were neglecting other crucial aspects of the agreement. Van Halen ensured that all of their requirements, including important safety precautions, were strictly adhered to. If brown M&Ms were discovered backstage, it indicated that the venue had neglected other aspects, and Van Halen would go to greater lengths to ensure everything was in order. This smart tactic guaranteed their well-being and the triumph of their energetic, intricate shows. Incorporating the M&M clause was a lighthearted method to convey a significant message, showcasing the band's dedication to excellence and careful attention to all aspects of their live performances. It focused on ensuring the safety and seamless execution of their shows, rather than the candy itself. In 2006, Eddie Van Halen embarked on a project that surprised many fans, causing raised eyebrows. Instead of putting out typical music, he created and played a few songs for an adult movie. The surprising action was not something that anyone would anticipate from the rock legend, famous for his epic guitar abilities. Van Halen described his participation in the project as just lending a hand to a friend. Van Halen admired Michael Ninn, the film's director, for his work. Eddie complimented Ninn's cinematography, highlighting the director's special talent for making the film feel sensual. Van Halen was attracted by this artistic quality, which led him to showcase his musical abilities. Van Halen was concerned with more than just the film's genre. Working on a creative project with a friend felt like a much-needed break from the usual routine. Although the work was unusual, Van Halen's involvement in composing music for the adult film showed his openness to trying different artistic paths beyond the traditional rock music industry. So did you even hear about the band that inspired Eddie Van to pursue music? You thought it was a mere rumor? Well, it's completely true. Let's delve into that. Eddie Van Halen was raised in a family with a strong connection to music. As a child, his musician father signed him up for piano lessons in the hopes of guiding him towards a career in music. Yet it was not his father's impact or his childhood education that ignited his true love for music. During an enlightening discussion with Rolling Stone, Van Halen disclosed that it was listening to the Dave Clark 5 that inspired him to pursue a career in rock music. Although lots of his friends preferred other popular bands, what caught Van Halen's interest was the energy and excitement of the Dave Clark 5. The impact of their performances stuck with him, leading him to discover that playing rock music on stage was his true passion. Van Halen's impact extended beyond their musical sound. Their ability to engage with the audience on stage inspired him to start playing the guitar. This spark of creativity paved the way for his iconic profession, ultimately transforming the rock music scene. During September of 1985, the U.S. Senate convened a meeting to address the effects of rock music lyrics on American society, particularly concerning topics such as hurting children and taking one's life. The discussion became intense as senators viewed several music videos, including the famous Hot for Teacher by Van Halen. Some senators thought that the video, along with several others, showed the harmful impact of rock music on youth. They contended that the defiant themes and controversial content found in rock music could negatively impact the youth. Even though the Senate did not enact any legislation regarding rock music in those hearings, the discussion had a long-lasting impact. An important result was the implementation of the Parental Advisory label, which started showing up on albums considered unsuitable for kids. This sticker was designed to alert parents about potentially inappropriate content, allowing them to have greater influence over their children's listening choices. The discussion on rock music's effect on young people did not lead to major changes, but it underscored the increasing conflict between music's creative liberty and worries about its societal influence. If you enjoyed this video, like and subscribe, and also click the next video shown on your screen.